And thank you so much, Sylvia, for inviting me to be here, and it's a pleasure today. And trust me, I'm gonna wrap it up pretty quick because this is the last presentation of today. I don't want to make it really long. So, if anyone of you is interested in the Nephio project, which I'm going to explain in the coming slides, there is this QR code you can scan, and you can get all the information about the website and about the project and about the different releases which are done in the past. So, what exactly is Nephio? Nephio, here I just going to cover some sort of bullet points that Nephio is just a cloud-native network automation platform which is built on intent. The idea here is mostly, again, in the previous 3 sessions we were talking about intent. I'm also going to show the intent which Nephio has designed. It's an intent which was designed by Nephio in the Nephio project. And the idea here is to use completely Kubernetes, meaning that the Kubernetes power of extending it and run some sort of reconciliation loops on the network function deployment, so that we can solve the fire and forget kind of orchestration which happens in the past, let's say. So, and Nephio started in 2022. It's a Linux Foundation networking project, and there are a lot of cloud providers, telco operators, network function vendors, and providers and hardware vendors which are involved in the Nephio project. So the fundamental building blocks of Nephio are actually the KTS Kubernetes as an orchestration framework, and especially the Kubernetes operator pattern. So what exactly is an operator pattern? I'll talk about it later. And then there is intent-based orchestration, configuration as data, and GitOps. So GitOps is also something which was showcased, I think, in the slide of OSM just before, and also this concept of configuration as data. And in this slide, you will see the placement of Nephio in the big picture. So in the big picture, if you'll see the end-to-end service orchestrator, and then there's the slice manager. Just below it, there's Nephio, where it has these 3 different in these 3 different blocks. We try to showcase, what exact features of Nephio are, let's say, in a broader picture. So that is, first of it is the cloud infra resource management, meaning that orchestrating Kubernetes clusters and managing them. And then the second is orchestrating network functions, let's say, or workloads. And then also the workload configuration management, that means the network function configuration management. And then below it, you can see all the interfaces which relies based on different standard bodies which can be used for this purpose. That is, first is O2IMS and O2DMS. They come from ORAN specifications, OCloud specifications, and then there is, for the network function configuration management, that can be done using O1 or 3GPP SA5 working group specifications, because O1 and 3GPP work group 5 specifications, they have some similarities. And then after that, you see below, how the network functions are arranged on the cloud infrastructure. So the architecture, in this architecture of Nephio, you'll see this blue blocks. So the blue blocks are the ones which are actually coming from Nephio, let's say, apart from the Kubernetes KTS API server. So since, as I mentioned earlier, that it's mostly based on Kubernetes, so the heart again comes back to the Kubernetes API server. And then there's another thing which is known as Porch. So Porch is the heart of Nephio. It is the package management orchestration which actually Nephio brings up. So this is this seed code for the Porch, and there's another component known as mostly, let's say, Porch was contributed by Google when the project was started, and then after that the community took it forward to implement more and more features there. So Porch, what it does is that it contains it actually takes the network function, or let's say workload package. I'll show you the package in the next slide and how the package looks like, and then it deploys that package. It pulls the package from Git, as you can see here. The Git you can see the Git repository. It pulls from there. It hydrates the package, meaning that it runs some sort of it extends the intent in a way the operator of the Kubernetes can understand it, and then it can be deployed. And then after that, there is Nephio Core. So Nephio Core is actually there are these Nephio specializers, or which are specially designed to take care of either the internetworking between the network functions, which are deployed on different clouds to let's say in distributed environment, and it can do more sort of, let's say, expanding the intent for these network function controllers or operators. So these are Kubernetes operators which are designed to extend the Kubernetes functionality by user-defined custom resource definitions, which are actually some sort of YAMLs which are defined by user, that how it can what Kubernetes can do more than what it's supposed to do, like deploying a container, but you can define more than that using these CRDs. So, and these Nephio specializers, they look like this. For example, that if you see that a package resides in different a package resides in a Git repository. So here, for example, I have shown multiple Git repositories. So it can be a public Git repository, a private Git repository, or it can be a hybrid. And then after that, the package is being pulled, and then it is pulled by Porch, the component which I showed earlier. And then after that, in that particular package, you're going to see some sort of these pipelines. These pipelines are the ones which define what actually should run on, how the package will be expanded, how its intent can be converted to a more readable format for the network function operator, which is designed by the network function vendor or the network function provider, let's say. So, and then in these pipelines, for example, it can also, in the intent, you will just define that, okay, I want these many interfaces in a particular subnet, but then we need to have the IP address allocation, or let's say the VLAN creations on the and other things like that. So the intent, so this is what it actually does. These specializers, they're designed to do these kind of things. And apart from that, let's say there can also be some sort of custom specializers. Let's say that every vendor can define their specializers to, let's say, to abstract the very low level information which is only needed by the NF, but the user does not really need that information. So all that can be injected on the fly after to create the complete package which goes to the network function operator. So, for example, this is the package orchestration. So in the package orchestration, here you can see that there are two packages in front of you. There is one for the core network AMF, and then there is the other one which is for the CUCP component. So if you see here, the core network component actually is designed, the core network function package says that, okay, deploy the core network AMF on the core cloud. We can decide wherever we want to deploy. So let's say there is a core cloud, and then there the CUU and the CUCP to deploy on the regional cloud. So this is some sort of distributed cloud topology where we have a core or a central cloud, then we have a regional cloud, and then there is also an edge cloud to deploy the user plane or the distributed unit of run. So this is more a URLLC kind of a scenario, for example. And so this is just this is how a package looks like. So the user gives this package definition, and then here it's the place where the Git repository from where the complete intent actually resides. And this is how, let's say, an intent really looks like. Here you can see that if you see here this NF deployment, so NF deployment here just showcase a raw, this is something really basic here. And in this NF deployment, it says that, okay, this is for the AMF, and it refers to the AMF configuration. So the AMF configuration, let's say, which user gives. There can be much more configuration than this which is there. So let's say if the user only gives information like some very basic information, PLMN, slicing information, and let's say some DNN related information, and for the user to connect to have a PDU session for internet, and certain other information. So all this is not, let's say, defined by Nephio. It can be defined by the network function vendor. They can put anything there. It's pretty customizable. And then after that, for example, below you see the interface. So AMF in general, it needs a couple of dedicated interfaces to talk to different network functions. So we can define all these all these interfaces using this YAML construct. and we just have to say that in which particular, let's say, network the interface will lie, and then after that all these different YAMLs will be taken by the Nephio specializers, and then they will create they will hydrate a big YAML which is taken by the network function operator, I would say, which is Kubernetes operator, and then the network function is deployed on the Kubernetes platform. So, and this is the intent for the RAN. Similarly, this is the intent for the RAN network function, the CUCP, which I showed before. So here you see the different configurations for CUCP. Again, here we can put whatever we want. It depends really on the vendor itself. And so now I'll talk about more, about the different releases of Nephio which have been there and the evolutions which going to happen in the future now. So the first release was mostly focused on showcasing these 3 different blocks which I showcased in the big placement picture, that like showcasing that how Nephio can really manage and create and manage the Kubernetes cluster, then how it can do a fully automated intent-based deployment of core network functions, and then after that how it can handle cases like network function scaling in case when we want to scale some functions down or scales up or down. And then after that, the second release was mostly focused on extending it to have a multi-cloud support by supporting different cloud, let's say different cloud vendors, and then adding the possibility to also orchestrate RAN. For that, the intent which was designed in the release 1 had to be updated in a way that it can fit RAN and core together. So that was done in release 2, and then after that, the release 3 was mostly about making the platform more stable, increasing its security score of Nephio, and then and actually reducing the deployment time it takes for an end-to-end deployment. Let's say to deploy RAN and core. So, and then after that, there was another focus which was there in release 3, which is mostly the ORAN user stories. So in release 3 of Nephio, the community actually started, talking to OSC and starting having some collaborations with OSC and having some dedicated user stories with OSC, so that these two communities can contribute together. So that was since release 3 we made some couple of user stories we identified, and in release 4 one of those user stories we are implementing, that's mostly, let's say, the cluster creation based on the intent which is also designed on based on the ORAN OCloud standards. That how the cluster can be created. So this release is one of the biggest topics of this release, and then there are some other topics which are ongoing, I would say. So in terms of collaborations with other open source projects, I would say then in the release 3 we focus mostly on collaborating with OSC for working towards O2 DMS and O2 IMS, that how exactly Nephio can, let's say, be an enabler for certain SMO components, not the whole SMO architecture, but some of them, and that's mostly the DMS part and the IMS part, where the DMS takes care of network function orchestration, and the IMS part takes care of the OCloud infrastructure management. So as I mentioned previously, in the release 4 we are mostly focusing on the OCloud management, and in release 3 we also focus a little bit on network function instantiation based on the work which was contributed in OSC. And then in this year there was also collaboration with Silva project, and we showcased some sort of a POC that how Silva showcased a POC between Nephio and Silva, that how it can be used, that how Silva can use Nephio's network function orchestration capability, especially the PORCH component of it, the package-based orchestration. And recently the community has started growing some interest towards the Camara project, and we are looking at it, then how Nephio can really start collaborating with Camara also in the coming future. So that's it. Thank you so much.